Recording in progress.
I'm confused. Karla, you're a broker or a lawyer or you're both?
I used to be an agent before I became an attorney.
Maybe we should talk on it as we start. Show us as active.
I think it's a new way to start the show.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Real estate is a black and white business where everyone works in the gray. Realtors have to grow comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. For instance, price. One of the most difficult calls a realtor has to make is calling his client and saying the property will not close as expected, might not ever close. Welcome back to Broker Talk, your weekly show about real estate industry. I'm Larry Lawfer, your host each week, along with my sidekick Jim Lowenstern. Each week, we bring you a guest who is qualified to keep you out of the rough with their information and their insight. There are many reasons why a property under agreement does not or cannot close. Today's guest is Karla Goodale, partner of Lieberman Law, a friend and trusted partner in the real estate process. She knows her shit and she doesn't take any. She's as straight-laced and professional in the day as the best of them. But let those straight laces loosen up and she's the friend who will get you home safely. Hey, Karla, let's discuss why houses under agreement don't close. What are the top 3 reasons?
Thanks, Larry. Welcome to everybody joining us today. I would say the obvious one is buyer's financing. Something doesn't happen, be it appraisal, be it someone loses a job, be it, lenders just having an issue, sourcing funds, something like that. The other big one that is an overarching umbrella that has a lot of, branches underneath it are title issues. And those title issues could be there's a missing person. There could be that there's a probate that wasn't closed correctly or it's still in probate. It could be bankruptcy. It could be a bank closes overnight or had closed a while ago, which creates some sort of cloud on title. So that's only 2, but I will say that the title, the word title issue has a multitude of meanings underneath that title.
Let me make that real. For instance, your seller or your buyer dies. That's a jump off the cliff moment, and you're probably
Absolutely.
not going to close in that situation. What are some of the others that people would understand really simply?
Yeah, so sometimes sellers don't know that if they are actively in a bankruptcy where their house has been shielded, the house wasn't taken or anything else like that, they might be on a payment plan. And so they might think that they can sell because, I'm going to get all the money from my sale, which will pay off the bankruptcy and we're good. But they may have chosen a direction that you have to make a certain number of payments before you can actually close. The house will be released out of bankruptcy. Another big one is it's in probate, and maybe there needs to be a full probate, not a late and limited probate. You might need a license to sell from the lender. You might be trying to find missing heirs who have to sign the deed. And if you can't find those heirs, you have to go to court to prove that the heirs have been tried to be found and can't. And then, you need court approval.
Yeah.
Some of these issues can take 6 months, a year, 18 months.
Well, shouldn't your agent or your attorney that's representing you, shouldn't some of those pop up pretty early? It's not going to happen in the last week before you close.
Well, death could definitely be something that happens. You say that, Larry, but with the real estate market that we're in, at least in, the greater Boston area, turn times are sometimes, 3 weeks,
Yeah.
28
Yeah,
days.
it's true.
By the time that you sign
true.
purchase and sale agreement, getting titles back, everybody has a different length. Sometimes it's as quick as 5. Sometimes if it's a very big, a big case that, there's a lot of documents. I've had 1,000-page title reports before. That just takes a lot more time. So we might
Yeah.
not find out until 2.5 weeks in, and we're supposed to be closing in 8 days. COVID has caused a lot of problems because the probate courts haven't been open, or the probate for Middlesex County, their old records are kept in Worcester. It takes 3 to 4 weeks to be able to get the
Yeah.
file out from storage. So we
Yeah.
very well may find out 2 days before closing, not because due diligence wasn't done, but because we didn't have the information to actually review.
Yeah. Another issue that has certainly cropped up in the last year and a half because of the rising prices, 20% over the last couple of months. I was listening to Dr. Lawrence Yun, the chief economist for National Association of Realtors. 20%, that's huge growth in that period of time. So appraisals become an issue. And who's going to pay the difference between the appraisal and the loan? Um,
That's becoming an issue, and we're actually. I'll be interested to see a problem that we had back during during the real estate crash was you'd have your appraisal, and 2 weeks later the bank might come back and say, you know what, we're not willing to honor that appraisal anymore because the market's decreasing in value so much. So
oh,
that was
yeah.
something that we ran across, that people would be given a commitment, and 2 days before closing, they'd say, not only are we rescinding your commitment, we're not going to lend to you at all because we think that the
Yikes.
house has decreased in value. We're not in that market right now, and I hope that we never see it again. But that was real stuff. That banks were
Yeah.
going out of business.
Yeah.
One day they're there, the next day our funds never show up, and we're
Yeah.
calling. It says the number's been deactivated.
Right.
Um, so yeah,
Yikes.
I know
That's a jump off the cliff moment.
it
That's
is.
one of the bad ones.
Yep.
Um, and yet, trying to get to the solution, I mean, you can either hang your head or you can try and figure something out. What are some of the ways, other than knowing what you have to do first, what the issue is, then how do you get it solved?
Well, let's go back to being proactive. And this is not a popular, it's not a popular take, but I think in this market, as with so much money on the line and people needing to sell to buy and contingencies and all these other things, I think the best thing that a seller could honestly do is order their own title rundown before
Uh,
they ever list the property. Title rundown, depending on your county, it can be anywhere between $1.75. Worcester can be up to like 350, something like that. It's short money because if you get delayed by 1 month, I always tell people, what are your carrying costs for 1 month? Most people's mortgages, unless you've owned it forever and ever and have a small mortgage, looking at 1,700, $2,000, $3,000 to spend a tenth of that on a title report that you can get and say, okay, we know that these are the issues that we have to clear up. Let's start working on getting those cleared up before it ever hits the market.
yeah.
It would be a great proactive. The buyer's attorney may not be willing to use that, kind of like if you get your own independent appraisal, the bank may not use that appraisal, but you already
Right.
know what you're looking at and what you have to work with and what the time frame for clearing those things up could be.
Yeah.
So Carla, do you have a favorite story about a deal that went south right before the closing?
Mm-hmm.
Favorite.
Oh, do I have another?
You want to share it? Yeah. Do you have a story?
I mean, I've had quite a few things happen. I mean,
Well, the worst one.
the buyer was on the way to closing. We were already there, and he was getting off the ramp off of 3 South, one of the clover leaves, and got hit by a car and died.
Mm.
That's my worst
What
story.
wasn't the one I wanted to hear? Let's
I'm
try the next
sorry.
one.
You're gonna have to refresh my memory, Jim. Which one was it?
Didn't want to hear
did
that one.
You two did one and it was bad?
Am I forgetting something, Jim?
No,
No.
Jim is being provocative.
Oh.
No, I just
Hey.
didn't want to hear about someone dying today.
I know it is, but no, I
Understand.
literally did have one time that the bank closed overnight. And we kept calling, being like, where's the package? Where's the money? Where's the package? And we finally ended up finding out 3 days later that the bank had just folded undernight, no successor interest. And that becomes one of those title issues that becomes a really big problem for us, especially if people go, I've owned my house forever. There's no big deal. When I hear that you've owned the house forever or it's been in your family forever, that's actually a huge red flag for me because no one has actually looked at the title for 20, 40, 60, 80 years. And we're having to go all that way back. So if you had been one of those people who was refinancing every 6 months before the financial crash, there's a very good possibility you might have used a lender who never got the discharge to your mortgage to record. And then there's no bank, there's no successor interest. It's not like, how Fleet Bank became Bank of America or Countrywide became Bank of America, that we have someone that we can go to. We literally have no place to go. And there's a couple things that you can look at. You can go to see who's the attorney who closed out the loan. Will they do a 5B affidavit? But I've had dead in the water there that the person's no longer with us, or that we only have to keep records for 10 years and they don't have proof that they ever paid it off because our rules are only 10 years back. And if this was 15 years ago, that is a perfect example of you cannot close. You have to take it to court, start something called a quiet title action to clean up your title so that basically the land court says, yes, this mortgage no longer exists. And that's something that could be easily.
And that delays the closing and the buyers walk.
Right. Oh, yeah. And you're not set. It doesn't matter what you want.
The buyers sold their condo. They're moving to a house. All their stuff is in the moving van. And now they're getting corporate housing for 2 months and suing the seller and all the brokers.
Our takeaway here is maybe do that title search before you put it on the market. We'll be right back after this ad.
When you are searching for a new home, you want to be working with a realtor with years of experience, a professional with intimate knowledge of the communities that you are considering moving to, and someone who really wants to represent you as a buyer in what is probably the largest investment you will ever make in your lifetime. The realtors at Castles Unlimited want to be your choice when you are ready to make your next move. Please visit us at castlesunlimited.com or call us anytime at 800-967-3561. The realtors help your next purchase, lease, or sale of any real estate the easiest decision you've ever made. Start your search anytime, 24/7 at castlesunlimited.com.
And we're back. We're going to have a couple of more better stories about how to get your clothes, but it seems as though, and I think we can all agree that the more proactive you are as a professional, the more you're paying attention, the less likely you're going to run into horrible problems. But hey, trust us in this business. You do run into horrible problems. What are some of the easier ones to fix? I would think the appraisal issue, because that's really a negotiation between the buyer and the seller at that point then.
Yeah, hopefully. I had a property just last night that came in 10 grand under, and we're renegotiating right now saying, are we going to split it? Is the seller just going to lower the price? Are we challenging the appraisal? That's right. Something that could be a possibility. You look at what the appraiser used for comps, you feel like you've got better comps, and you can take it back to the appraiser and go, can you tell us why you won't, or could you look at these and see if we can maybe get a little bit more money out of it?
Yeah. At that point, it gets harder, but you can be both sides. They're down this road and they've made a decision that they're going to buy or sell, and they want to close, but emotions can get in the way about tiny little things, and you really have to keep the emotions out of it because it's a transaction.
I oftentimes tell my client to go back to the source of why did you decide that you're buying or selling? Let's go back to that original reason, and let's take all the noise and the drama and the stress and the out of it and go, is the original reason that you were buying or selling still there? Is the original reason that you were buying this house still there? It's down the street from your in-laws, or it's in the school system where another, whatever it is. And, that's, I think, that the agents and the attorney's responsibility is to acknowledge that there's a lot of stress and going on, and there's real emotions there, but we get to take that away like therapists and go, okay, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back,
Right.
I think that, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think that's one of the reasons why, getting your license doesn't make you a good agent. Going through a number of these things, it's not just experience. There's technique and listening to the show so you can find out things before you actually experience them.
The thing with, if a title issue comes up like an appraisal, again, you can just start looking at it from a real money standpoint. If the buyer is supposed to be closing in 5 days, and they have their rate lock expires on that same day, and now we're looking at $1,000 rate lock issue, and if the seller doesn't sell for 30 days, that's a whole nother mortgage. We're going into winter. That's oil or fuel or whatever else like that. You might very quickly say, you know what? By the end of 30 days, I've just spent another $4,000, and we're only looking at a $5,000 appraisal gap. Does it make sense to drag us through the mud to figure out if I can save myself $250 somewhere?
Right.
It's real money. I'm the first one to say I don't want to spend anyone else's money, but sometimes when you really just start looking at it, you write those numbers down, it makes sense to just move forward if you can.
Right. that whole rate lock thing is an issue. Anecdotally, I've heard recently there was a deal that was going on, and the listing agent was kind of cavalier about it. Oh, we've got to have an extension. We've got to have an extension. It was because he was on vacation and hadn't done the fire and CO2. You were the lawyer on this one, and I had to go to the house while you were at the closing, and it wasn't that the issue about moving an extra day would have been a big deal, but what he didn't know is that my person had a rate lock. You know, it had to be then, and she's in the military. Things have to be military time. You know, do what you're supposed to do. So even when you're doing something that's within all of the gray areas, if you don't know all the facts, you can't be cavalier about any of this with anybody in the process.
Well, something that I have going on with two of my flippers right now, and one of them I feel just horrible for, are all of these delays getting the gas lines connected.
Yeah.
Because they were on strike, and then it was COVID, and everything else like that. I've had one's been delayed for 6 months, another one's already been 6 months, and we just got notice that it's going to be at least another 6 weeks. And one of my flippers is, a hard money loan.
Right.
He's paying, a chunk of change every month on.
And they can't put propane in.
Well, that's what I said, but then he was saying that the propane was also somewhat backed up, because that's what I said. I go, guys, at what point are we just going to put in propane? Because I have other deals that close with propane. We have a holdback agreement when the gas can be connected, do that. One of them, it's a subdivision, and the subdivision isn't allowing propane, period. New construction. The other one's a flip, could maybe do it. But exactly, Jim, perfect example. We're all trying to brainstorm on any deal where we come up short. It's like, can we do a holdback? Can we do an indem? Like, what can we do? With Larry's, the moratorium on smoke certificates was lifted last October. When someone says, we don't have a smoke, what are we going to do? Can we do a holdback? I'm like, no, state law says we have to have this. I have one that's closing down on the South Shore. We had to move the closing till the 12th because she called up 3 days before closing, and they're like, no, we don't have anything for 2 weeks. Yeah. And she's like, oh, sort of thing. Because again, everyone is backed up. I mean, even our first responders and everything, there have been people who have removed themselves from the industry or anything else like that, and they're just short-staffed.
My suggestion to the flippers is don't be flipping so quick. I have had builders who, they want the crazy price, and eventually they don't get the crazy price. But if they leased it for a year or so, they would have got the crazy price plus. So, just slow your roll. The money will come.
Well, that's funny that you should say that, Jim, because the appraisal issue that I came up with last night, he is an investor, and he said, I can't lower it. He goes, I'm already in for it for more than what it appraised at. And
just relax.
Exactly what I said to him, I go, well, then why don't you rent it for a year? Yeah. He goes, no, I want to recoup my money. I said, well, if this person isn't paying it and it didn't appraise, then how do you think we're going to go back on market and get it to appraise for any higher?
They're afraid they're going to scratch the floor. You know what? The scratch floor is going to be worth more. Scratch the walls too while you're at it.
Loved cozy. Larry, I did think of one other proactive thing that can keep sellers from not having delays, and it's a big thing. Anyone who is on the deed, on the face of the deed where it says, we people grant to, whomever comes after that grant to, those people are signing the deed. I have had many, like handful, if not more, in the last year and a half that people have been out of the country.
Right.
And, I have one right now that we're sending out the power of attorney today to the UK. So hopefully he can secure an appointment. I had someone who had to fly back from China. Yeah, she had to fly back from China to say, because she was working there for an American company. The consulate was closed. Everything was closed. I had another one in Canada. Canada's not part of the Hague Convention. She had to go. She's like, the closest consulate's 2.5 hours away. I don't want to drive there. I said, then fly back and close with us. And people will just say, well, I'll just sign under power of attorney. I go, right, but your power of attorney needs to be notarized. So if you're getting a power of attorney notarized, you can get the deed notarized. So, or their place is unknown. They haven't been able to find them.
Yeah.
My husband left years ago and I don't know where he is. Well, you're going to have to take that to court, prove that you can't find him to be able to sell your house.
Yeah.
So that making sure that everyone's on the deed is available to sign is another big one.
We'll be right back, folks, for more.
Smells so good.
All right, folks, we're back. We want to leave you with some best practices and things that you can do. We talked about this during the break. Karla, you
I'm getting knocks.
it's not the dog barking or the baby walking in. I like that. Jim fell off the chair once holding up a dog.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah, that was funny. It's on
Broke my microphone.
You broke the microphone too.
That's the last time that I was on the show. It wasn't it
Oh,
your
were
dog?
you on the show?
Yeah.
That was Brownie.
Yeah. That's what we
My puppy just
I
had
forgot you were the guest.
her tubes cut yesterday. She's
Yeah.
1 year old, and happy birthday, Layla.
Yeah.
Into the surgeon. Snip, snip.
Anyway.
So best practices, Larry, you were saying.
Well, the best practice is always keep learning as much as you can. If I'm a listing agent and an offer comes in, I'm talking to that lender to find out how real this buyer is and can they close and what, if any, is the wiggle room. What do you think, Karla, about offers when, say, for instance, the asking price is what the buyer can buy X. So the asking price is X minus. Should you just give them the same, or should you have the people do a lower?
Oh, okay. I have a very strong opinion about this, but there are definitely two schools of thought on this.
Yeah.
The one school of thought, which I do not partake in, is you don't want to show your hand. If we're buying, let's just say hypothetically for 500, maybe our pre-approval says 500 or 505 or, something like that. So we're qualified, but the other school of thought, which is my school of thought, within reason, if you're qualified up to $1 million and you're buying a $500,000 house, maybe you don't need the $1 million pre-approval, but show the 600, show that there is no problem whatsoever. Because, I always make it akin. If I have $100 in my pocket and I need a white t-shirt, that doesn't mean I have to buy a $100 t-shirt. I can go buy a 3-pack at Walmart if I want, or I could go into like Gucci and buy, a white t-shirt. I have the buying power and I'm showing that. For me, when a listing agent sends me over accepted offer and the purchase price ends up being $550 and the pre-approval was for $500 because it ended up being a bidding war, I go, have we checked that they're actually approved for this? Like, did we vet that? Same with, when dates come over and it's a quick turn time, I ask the listing agent, did you call the lender and make sure, a lot of appraisals are taking 2 and 3 weeks to get back, or it's taking a week for them to get out and then another week and a half, we're closing before the appraisals is even going to be done. Have you, if it's a lender that you've never worked with before or an out-of-state lender, have you vetted that lender that they understand that Massachusetts is a time of the essence state, that our mortgage commitment, once that passes, they cannot get their money back. There are states, closing day, you can walk in and say, I don't want to buy, give me my money back. That's not Massachusetts. So it's not that there aren't all great lenders. It's, do they understand how it works? And a lot of times, even that, as an attorney, I'll tell people when they're looking at multiple lenders, I say, send me your loan estimates, because every state, who pays for the title insurance and everything else like that. Some states, but seller pays it. Some states, buyers pays it. Some states, they split it. What are the recording fees? You know, New Hampshire, it's so much per the first page and X amount per every other page. Massachusetts, it's a flat fee. If you're recording a deed, it is what it is. Maybe $1 or $2 more because of the county.
Right.
So making sure that everybody is aware, because that's another problem with the buyers. They think their closing costs are X, and then all of a sudden they find out that, you know, a couple $1,000s hasn't been accounted for because it wasn't disclosed correctly, because
Right.
it was a lender who doesn't know Massachusetts practices.
I have a question, Carla. How do attorneys in Massachusetts all get paid pretty much the same way? It's just a flat fee, or some are by the hour, some get paid by basically the title insurance
It's
premium.
So I would say that if you are going to be doing buying or selling in Massachusetts, you want to use a real estate conveyancing attorney, because we are transaction based. So it's usually a flat fee. You know, if you use an attorney who goes to court and this, that, and another thing, that's a billable hour. And I think that for a buyer or a seller, you need to find out right up front, is this a
Right.
billable hour or not? Because on my buyers and sellers, I lose money every single day. The number, because you never know what's going to come up.
Right.
And so the minute I start clearing title issues, that could be 3 or 4 hours. If someone's charging $350 an hour, you could have a couple $1,000s in legal fees before you've even, you know, blinked.
Yeah.
So you
So do you
want to
charge the same whether the house is 300,000 or 3 million?
Yes, the purchase or sale price is not what's dependent. It's dependent upon, is it new construction? Is it coming out of divorce? Is it in a probate? Is it in bankruptcy? You can gauge what sort of time you're going to have to put into it. So that's what I tell my clients, you know, when my sellers, people go, what do you charge? I go, I need to find out what the situation is. Are there 6 siblings that all have to agree and they're spread all over the country, you know, sort of thing? That's going to probably be 6 separate conversations every single time that I have to do something. So it is a flat fee. I mean, usually, you know, sales, I'd say sales in the area range from, you know, maybe like $850 to $1,200, kind of like, and then purchases, if it's new construction or, you know, anything else like that, it's usually a little bit higher. The range on purchases is a lot bigger, just depending on who it is. And then, you know, you get, of course, in the city, it's more expensive than the further out.
And a cash sale would be less because there's no lender.
You mean a cash purchase?
Yeah, well, sale, purchase.
The sales never really change because it doesn't matter to us if there's a lender or not.
Okay.
Purchases, yeah, I mean, you're still doing the closing work and everything else like that. So it's not necessarily less expensive to do. You're not dealing with as much, but you're still, from the attorney standpoint, we're still collecting, you know, smokes and payoffs and final readings, and we're still doing all these adjustments. It's just a matter of, are we dealing with a lender or not? But no, it's pretty standard across the board, I'd say.
Okay. Is it true the states that you were talking about where you could just walk in and say, hey, I don't want to buy it anymore, are they also the states where you can open carry a weapon?
I would like
red
to
states?
say at least 2 of them that I know of. Yes,
Oh,
you would
Larry.
be able to. Yep.
That was the first thing. Hey, I don't want this anymore.
It takes longer to buy a pricing gun than it does a real gun. You know?
Yeah. Anyway, it's been awesome to have you back on, and I totally forgot you were here, and the dog that is on our highlight reel, so as it should be.
I do have a little story because we sort of touched on it. I was the listing agent on a townhouse in Brookline, and a very astute business person was my client. So we were having trouble selling it, but eventually someone came in with an offer, and it was a cash offer. And we took a look at the proof of funds, and the proof of funds indicated that they had maybe 2 or 3 times as much cash in this account that they were showing us than the selling price. Boy, did the negotiation change after that.
Yeah. And I think that is the thought process, is that the sellers are like, they can afford it, they can afford it, they can afford it. And I get why people are like, why would you show that? But in these, I think it also depends on the market. You know, if you're in a bidding war, isn't it going to make the seller feel so much better to know, like, these people, you know what, if it doesn't appraise, or if, you know, something comes up, 500 or $5,000 isn't going to kill the deal. Whereas other deals, we
Right.
know that the minute there's an extra, you know, $100, it's like, we can't do it anymore. I mean, I've literally had deals, because we're coming up to that point once we get into December, where we're going to have to collect the February tax bill. That might be like $1,500. That might kill a deal. So if you go from closing in November to December, that's something that could end up killing a deal, because the buyers don't have the extra money to bring. So little things like
it's
that.
fascinating stuff. It really is, and there's a lot to learn. Listen, next week we'll have won't be as fun as Karla, but be a great guest next week as well. Thanks so much for listening to us. And
Thank you, Karla.
Awesome to see you guys again. You have a great weekend.
You too.
Good to see you.
Thanks, Larry.
All right. Hey, do you like our new music?
I like it. Yeah, I do.
It's our theme music.
You have it written for you?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks for watching Broker Talk. We really appreciate you folks.
Recording stopped.